to be on the right side of history does not mean that humanity will survive or that we will have the prospect of thriving. And I stake my ground on that truth.
I'm Autumn Brown, front woman of the eponymously named soul pop band, Autumn, a queer science fiction writer, a theologian, a mother of dragons, and a healing justice facilitator for social movements living on Dakota and Anishinaabe land, currently known as Minneapolis.
And I'm Adria Marie Brown, a fat, black, queer witch writer and gardener of healing ideas. I live in the land of the Shakori, Skurure, Tuscarora, and Lumbee peoples, and it's hurricane season.
And this is How to Survive the End of the World,
our podcast about learning from apocalypse with grace, rigor, and curiosity.
As a reminder, we have no ads. We are fully listener supported on this show.
So you can join our Patreon for exclusive content, including videos, feelings, and bloopers.
Welcome to a very, very special episode of How to Survive the End of the World. Today, we are so honored to have as our guest the great teacher, Norma Wong. So before we get into the magic with Norma, I'm going to just do a little introduction and share some background on who Norma Wong is. And then we're going to check in, bring ourselves all into the space, and then we'll get into our conversation. Norma Wong is a native Hawaiian and Hakka lifelong resident of Hawaii. She is the abbot of Anko Inn, an independent branch temple of Daihanzen Chozenji, and serves practice communities in Hawaii, across the continental US, and in Toronto, Canada. She is an 86th generation Zen master, having trained at Chozenji for over 40 years. In earlier years, Wong served as a Hawaii state legislator on the policy and strategy team for Governor John Waihee, with federal and native Hawaiian portfolios. She led teams to negotiate agreements on the munitions cleanup of Kaho'olawe Island, ceded land revenue for native Hawaiians, and the return of lands and settlement of land issues for Hawaiian homelands. She was active in electoral politics for over 30 years. We're going to get to hear some stories today. In recent years, Wong has been called back into service to facilitate breaking the impasse and transforming policy and governance on issues of seeming contradiction. In the conflict between native culture science and Western discovery science posing as a dispute over the construction of a telescope on Mauna Kea, Wong was a team member narrating and facilitating a path forward through mutual stewardship. She is currently an advisor to Speaker of the Hawaii House of Representatives, Scott Saiki, serving in policy development and facilitation roles on issues such as the protection of the aquifer from fuel contamination at Red Hill and the long-term response to the Lahaina wildfires. Norma Wong has spent many years in the applied space, the direct application of Indigenous and Zen ways, values, and practices to living and transformational change critical to our times. She is a part of the collective acceleration community of practice. And excitingly, her new book, When No Thing Works, a Zen and Indigenous perspective on resilience, shared purpose, and leadership in the time, place of collapse, was released on November 5th, 2024. Which is just wild, and we want to hear about the timing of that. And I will say personally, I had the honor to participate in a series of workshops with Norma Wong on 60/40 stance, also known as Ford stance, that she led in 2015 and 2016 here in Minneapolis. And that's how I was first introduced to her work. And I've been following her work ever since. And I'm so honored to have you on the show. Welcome, Norma. Welcome.
I know when we realized that it was like landing that we were going to get to talk to you this week, that was your book release week and also election week. It was just like, wow, the universe really doesn't play around. It really provides the medicine we need right on time.
No, it really doesn't play around. The thing that I am remembering
Mm.
by this embarrassing introduction is that I have met you folks before.
Mhm.
I have been in space with you before, some more briefly and some not. And that to me, there's always a reason why you might meet people. You don't know why that might be so. And
Mm.
that when you come back upon each other, that's something to
Mhm.
take notice of. So
Mhm.
thank you so much.
Mm. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. So let's start with our check-in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Adrian and I
Yeah.
always ask each other and anyone on our show when we start, we ask, how are you today right now? So Norma, we would love to kick it to you first. How are you today right now?
Well, I'm going to invoke a fellow teacher of mine who just passed. Her name
Mm.
is Puanani Burgess, and I don't know if you've heard her name,
I have.
but Puanani Burgess has a practice, and she has a soft ball, one made with cloth and of many colors, and she passes it around, and she says, "Tell me what your weather inside of you is today.
Mm,
What
Mm.
is the weather inside of you today?" So if I were holding the ball that Punani had made, I would say, well, today the weather inside of me is blustery. It is cool, and there seems to be a bit of both sunshine and storm.
Mm.
So what is the weather inside of you?
Oh, I love that.
hmm Adrian, you want to go next?
Sure. I love this prompt and thinking about it in this moment. I mentioned it's hurricane season here, and it's been really helpful for me to recognize like what hurricanes feel like. And I feel like we're in kind of the eye of a hurricane in this moment, where it's like we've
Mm,
been barreling through such storm, and I can feel inside my body, it's just been stormy, stormy, stormy. And right now it feels like kind of a swampy, languid heat. And like everything feels very still and the sky feels very clear. Like everything is just so clear and it is so warm. And it is time
mhm,
to be clear and warm and slow, knowing that the storm will continue soon. And there's a lot to do, but like right now, it's like, okay, gather your breath, gather your water, like move slowly and and thank goodness for roots. Like keep rooting. You didn't get pulled up yet. Here you still are. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. How about you, Autumn? How's the weather system in you?
mm. My weather system is uh earthworm who's landed above ground after in the aftermath of a storm and is
Mm.
like very like raw and that feeling of I'm not supposed to be here. That's I've been in a very raw emotional state today, which
Mm.
I wasn't over the last 3 days. I was not
Uh-huh.
feeling emotionally raw in the way that I feel today. I was the last
Mhm.
few days I'd been feeling more of a sense of like fortification.
Mm.
And then this morning I've just been feeling very naked, earthworm.
Mm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, the ground is still very wet.
Yeah, there's something I want to add
But
to that,
but
which
but
is
I'm on cement. You can't add
you're
to
on
it to my
cement,
check-in.
not yours, but add to the general check-in moment. I love being your sister so much. Um, Something I feel like keeps occurring to me is also like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like the weather of togetherness, but there's something like the way that I have been moving through this week has just been so together with others. And like I had a friend from out of country who was in New York, and I was like, come down and let's have a slumber party. Like, I need a slumber party. And then I just picked up my friend Toshi from the airport, and we're going to be together, over the next couple of days. And then ancestrally, last night I had an ancestor channel open, and I just like let ancestors use me to sing songs. And I think maybe some whales were using me, but I was just singing. I had like 4 or 5 songs come through and poems, and all this stuff was just downloading. And I was like, I'm so together. Like, I'm so
Hmm.
not alone right now. And yeah, maybe the most togetherness I've ever felt. Um, that also feels like part of, I'm like, what's the weather of togetherness? Which maybe it's also storm. It's like, oh, everyone's got to be in the same little room right now. And this is where
Hmm.
we are. So, um, yeah, I, I'm really glad that the three of us are talking with each other today. That makes me like, it feels like a good offer to the universe and to the world right now. And Norma, I want to start by asking you about your book. And I got to blurb this book, so I want to share my blurb with people. The book is called When No Thing Works Again. It's a Zen and Indigenous perspective on resilience. And what I wrote here was Norma Wong has been a compelling teacher in the realm of transformation for years. When I met her, she was somehow one with the floor, as several grown-ups tried with zero success to lift her up. And I wanted to learn everything about that grounding. In this tight, engaging work, this book, Norma is walking us through current events and possibilities, pointing out the actual currents and the questions, the time, places, and emergent worldviews that most matter. This is deep, no nonsense grounding, taught lightly with invitation and humor and curiosity, profound and embodied in each line. I know I will return to this text over and over. So, Norma Wong, I wanted to ask you, we wanted to know what prompted you to write this book and what made you choose this week to release it? And if you can share a bit, how does it feel to put the book into the world this week? Mm-hmm.
Well, let's see. Well, all of these things have a story. They
Mm-hmm.
have a story. And the story for this book is that I wouldn't have written anything, uh, not for traditional publication. I've certainly written things, I've given them to students and to colleagues and to comrades in the field. So writing is part of what I do, but
Mm,
not to put it out in the world in which it would reach someone that I have never met. That's
Hmm.
not part of the lineage of my ancestors. I come from very oral tradition folks,
mm.
both on the Native Hawaiian side as well as on the Hakka Chinese side. But Taj James, who you may know,
Our
and who,
beloved.
yes, Taj spent 2 years convincing me to write this book.
Oh, wow.
And what finally convinced me was a question that he asked.
Mm,
And he said, in these particular times, can we transform as people fast enough if we only speak to the people that we're in relationship to right now, and we don't extend to the people who don't yet know that we are in relationship to them?
Hmm.
And that is a question that he asked.
mhm.
And I had to take that as a wise question
Hmm.
and a kick in the ass, basically,
Mm.
as things go.
Yes.
And so I wrote this very small and thin book. As for the release, those are not decisions that you make. Adrian, you've written a few, but
Yeah.
those are decisions that publishers make. But once I knew the date, I knew that it would arrive in a time when we would not know the future.
Yes.
And that is something that I knew would occur irrespective of the outcome.
Mhm.
Mm,
Okay, so it would not depend on any of that because as a country, we are so divided. The election would decide no thing.
Mhm.
mm,
It would not decide anything at all. And so,
Mhm.
therefore, it's not one of those things where it's say, well, now the book is relevant or now the book is not. We're in a
Yeah.
fractious moment.
Mhm.
mm.
Mm.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That really resonates. Um I put out a book in August, and I was like, I don't know exactly when it'll come. And then it was like, oh, it's August right before this election. And so I've been traveling around talking to people during this time and just really feeling the like, oh, like what we've been holding on to is not steady, it's not solid. And that means there's a lot of opportunity to develop something else. But the ways we've been allowing ourselves to hold on to like divisiveness of like, well, at least the way I think is better than the way you think. And I'm just going to leave you behind in the dirt thinking that. I'm like, that doesn't work, you know? So a lot of what I was writing, like, how do we hold on to each other? And it's actually been so healing to travel around and see all these people like wanting this conversation. And I think your book, it feels like that I'm like, oh yeah, this is we're in a place where we don't know. And what does it take to sit with that and feel it from within, you know?
Hmm.
Hmm.
I have a question.
Mm.
Um, and it's related to this, the conditions as you named it, Norma, of this the book coming into the world in this moment of where we actually don't know the future. Um, when I worked with you back in 2016, I remember you sharing a story um that, I would fully welcome you to retell if you wish to on this show about the 100-year arc work that you did um, with fellow organizers in Hawaii. And I remember you sharing about how having this longer arc orientation, um, how in part there were things that you ended up making progress on more quickly as a result of having a much longer arc orientation to the work that you all were doing. Um, and I remember that part of the story really settling somewhere deep inside of me, this idea that, we are so obsessed with short-term outcomes and short-term gains that perhaps we forget what real progress can actually be made possible if we have a really different orientation to time. And I'm just wondering if in that spirit, if you could share some reflections on both what you've learned from having that kind of orientation to your own organizing work and what that orientation has to say about this moment.
This, by the way, is almost all of the work that I do now. Almost all the
Hmm.
work I do now is what I would call unapologetically indigenous, which is to say that there was a time when all of the peoples of the world were indigenous.
Hmm.
So if you cannot call yourself indigenous today, it is only because your indigeneity was disconnected from you so long ago that you cannot say that you have any cultural or sociopolitical or cellular memory of it.
Hmm.
But every single person, by definition, at one point in their history, right, the tens of thousands of years of history were indigenous. And in an indigenous state, one of the aspects of your indigeneity is that your sense of time was entirely different.
Mm.
You had a notion of rootedness deeply in the past,
Mm.
so long ago that you would not remember the first ancestor. And you would have a sense of your responsibility to a future that is so far in the future, you know, you do not yet have numbers and names for the numbers of years and the names of the people that will follow.
Mm.
That's an orientation that you would have. And it wouldn't be just about only a few people having which is to say that everyone in the village, everyone on the hill, everyone living in the desert would have that orientation. And some would be stepping into it more, but everyone would have that.
Mm.
Okay. And so that aspect of what it is that we had, I believe, is an essential skill to reignite today, and that it
Mm.
is a human thing that we have forgotten.
Mm.
So I call it the horizon story.
Ah.
Okay, so it's if we aren't just looking down at the ground, and if we look out, just standing tall with some pride,
Mm.
right, we could have a sense of actual physically embodied sense that there is not only a horizon, but something beyond it.
Mm.
So this is not a metaphorical thing, right?
Mm-mm.
It's all of the technology has trapped us into very small spaces
Mm-hmm.
and into the word salad of our conversations,
Mm.
right? Where we
Mhm.
just go round and round and round and concepts and ideas. And that if we look up and we stand in our pride,
Mm.
we can begin to entice the possibilities. And here, I would say, look at the possibilities beyond the fraughtness of the current moment,
Mm.
beyond the apocalyptic moment, which, by the way, will come upon us whether we think about it or not, or worry about it or not, or figure out strategies into it or not. It is a thing that will come upon us, or I would say that we are in now. We are in it now. So beyond that fraught moment,
Mm.
less of a wildly imagining moment, but the moment that you would prepare your people for if you had that responsibility.
Mm.
So a long arc responsibility is everyone stands in responsibility of each other. And we
Ah.
know we have to build and cultivate the conditions for that thriving to occur. And that kind of imagining is rooted imagining.
Mm.
It is not, oh, in my dream, I imagine and now I awaken to the reality, right? It is what, by the way, every farmer has to do in the autumn season.
Mm.
Okay. It's not like things are going to grow by themselves, but every farmer has to make decisions about how the land will be fruitful again, what will be required in the changing moment as the seasons are changing so quickly. What does that mean in terms of how you will plant, what you will plant, what you will do after the
Mm.
seed is planted, right? You have to think
Mm.
through these things very specifically. And it feels like that kind of a moment. If we are in the eye of the storm right now, and if this eye is actually going to last for a while, how might we take advantage of that, looking not only in the rear mirror of our
Mhm.
aspiration?
Mhm.
So, yes, those are the kinds of things I think about, uh,
Mhm.
fortunately and unfortunately, as the case might be.
I really appreciate that. I this language emerged over the past few months. I hadn't heard it before of polycrisis. That's like, oh, what a lot of what I see on the horizon and a lot of what feels like we're moving through is this polycrisis. That language is like, oh yeah, it's like it yields an intersectional despair, that I feel like there's a lot of people who are looking at what's coming and looking at what is and feeling despair. And just a few, like this week, I've been getting reached out to and touched into by a lot of people who are really in deep despair. And just some of it I want to name here. I have felt and been with the despair of my Palestinian poet comrade Mossab Abu Toha, whose family has been in northern Gaza all this time and has been starving and now has been captured, partially captured. I'm sitting with the despair of one of my trans nibblings is in community with other trans young people, two of whom died by suicide this week after the election results. I am feeling the despair of Black exhaustion, of Black people who were like, we have just given and given and given, and like nothing we do will convince people that our lives matter. I am sitting in the despair of all these women whose bodies now feel even more in danger than we have, and who are looking around at every man and at least half the white women and just being like, are you trying to kill me right now? Like, are you just okay with it? I'm sitting in the despair of the earth boiling, and everyone I talk to is like, it's hot here and it's not supposed to be hot here. And then the despair of just being part of movements that have been trying to work on all these things, my whole adult life, your whole adult life, and just feeling the despair of like what loss looks like when you're like, we weren't even fighting for what we wanted to win. We were just trying to keep like a small opening of some sort. So I'm holding all of that in my heart and in my body and in my connections. And then trying to keep bringing myself back to like, I'm here on purpose. I'm here on purpose, and we're all here at this time on purpose. And we wanted to ask you, how do we stay connected to purpose inside such overwhelming despair that really just keeps coming like waves? Um, yeah.
Well, I believe that as long as our purpose is about fighting the conditions that we are in,
Yeah.
that we will remain in despair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if our purpose is about the purpose of our shared humanity, and if our shared humanity is requires the levers of thriving
Mm-hmm.
that mean that we are the ones who have to do it, and we cannot look to the institutions and the structures that are collapsing around us to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And we go about that. Then I believe that whatever it is that we are in right now will be still a struggle, but that our purpose will be so clear that we will keep moving towards the light of that,
Mm-hmm.
even if we are in the back of the cavern of it. And so there's that part where um, it's like we have to determinately place the darkness at our back
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
and to keep the warmth and the light in full view and to understand.
Mm.
By definition, if we are in a totally polarized world, that does mean that there are actually billions of people that we can count on and billions of people we cannot. And
Uh-huh.
somehow we're giving more power to the billions of people who cannot. We're giving them more power.
Mm.
What is it about that? As if people who are going to be determinately facing the darkness have more power than the people who are going to determinately face the light.
Mhm.
If that is the case, then I would say, all right, it's uh, time to make a different plan,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
It's that um, in my line of work, and these days, although I come from a long history of political work and policy work and pretty wonkish work, these days my day job is determinately seated within the work of the spirit. And in the work of the spirit, we'd say, you are incapable of actually really doing the work unless you have an existential question to answer.
Hmm.
Mm.
Otherwise, otherwise, everything will drag you back out of that determined space of struggle that is necessary in order to really figure out the truth.
Uh, mm.
And so I'd say, if we are not in a moment of human existential crisis, that in which we have to actually answer the question, what does it mean to be a human?
Mhm.
Then I would say uh, we do not yet know what existentiality might mean. So there's the critical juncture for change
Mm.
only occurs when the crisis is so upon us that there's no turning back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say, okay, the identification of that moment and that understanding of that in your, just in your wholeness, in your whole cellular being. Okay. Uh, Now you have a choice. And that choice should not be fight or flight.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
choice should not be that. That fight or flight plays into the current narrative of win or lose. And
Mhm.
in win or lose, only humanity loses.
Mhm.
Okay. If the series of events coming up into this past week, if it shows us nothing else, it should show us that. Okay. It doesn't matter how righteous your point of view is.
Mhm.
It does not matter. And there are so many righteous and deserving points of view right now.
Mhm.
Right. And that for which can be our fight or flight can be justified,
Mhm. Mhm.
clearly can be justified. To be on the right side of history does not mean that humanity will survive or that we will have the prospect of thriving. And
Ooh.
I stake my ground on that truth. I stake my ground on that truth.
Mhm.
Could you just say that again?
I don't know if I can.
I heard you
I
say
heard you
to be
say.
on the right side of history does not mean that basically we get to expect thriving, or expect our human continuance. That's how it landed for me. It's
Yeah.
like that's not the given, and that might not be the best thing. Um, the right side of history. I love this. We've had a friend, Michaela Harrison, come on here she sings to whales and talks to whales and listens to whales. And she's like, they're saying like, it's not all about y'all, there just might be another path, and we will rule the earth if you can't, She's been here in a loving way, just like it's okay, this isn't just a human story, it's an earth story. And
Y'all don't have
yeah.
it.
Yeah, so far, your leadership is not compelling. Yes, so thank you for all of that thick wisdom, Norma.
Hmm. I'm
Mhm.
just letting it
Taking a
land.
moment for a sip.
Good,
Please
let's all
do.
do that. Everybody drink some water right now. Mm,
There's so much in what you just said that I want to unpack. And there was a thing that you said a few minutes back where you said, um, we keep giving so much power in a polarized world. We
mm,
keep giving so much power to the billions of people who, I don't remember exactly how you said it, don't agree with us. And you said, what's that about?
mhm,
And I wanted to ask you, what do you think that's about?
mhm, mhm,
What do you
mhm,
think is I mean, and this is something Adrian and I talk about all the time. I definitely, I suspect that there is some real allergy to power that we have, you know. Um, those of us who believe in freedom and liberation, we also have, you know, we have a real allergy to having power ourselves. And I suspect that that's a part of it.
mhm,
But I don't think that
mhm.
that's the whole story either. And I'd be curious to know what you think.
Well, let's see. How much time do you have? Uh, clearly, some of this is about an unhealthy relationship to power, but also somehow we've gotten our head that that power and authority will effectively lead you down a particular path, and that particular path will mean that there will be domination and control that's associated with that. And I would say that there's a lot of evidence, right, that that is the case. But what do we think that, you know, the whole notion that somehow, you know, a state of non-power would therefore mean that the opposite would be so. So
Mm,
we're still thinking about all of that in a binary
mm,
more than anything else. And I would say that that is certainly the case if we do not work on the human condition, right? So, which is to say that if you don't work on the human condition, then what will occur is that the parts of our greed, our necessity to control in just for control's sake, the aspects of our notion that somehow we know better than anyone else, right? Those types of
Mm.
things take hold. And then, when you're there in the seat of power, by the way, that seat of power could be your local nonprofit,
uh-huh.
Hmm.
okay, or your move,
I
okay,
was like, it
or your
definitely
movement
could be.
space, could be,
Hmm.
right? Your
Hmm.
movement space, right?
Hmm.
And all of that. There's nothing special about the container if you allow the container to be something that has to defend itself,
Hmm.
right? If it
Hmm.
has to defend itself and defend itself against other containers, then that is, part of what completely unravels us in this moment of collapse. By the way, I'd say that it took about 4,000 years for us to get to this point. And so the notion that it could somehow right itself
Mhm.
in the course of a few election cycles. I mean, what's that about? I mean, what is that about?
Mhm.
Okay,
Mm.
Ego.
right? That also means we've completely bought into a consumer notion of human history.
Yes.
We can
Ooh.
we can package and sell and buy, you know, the answers that will somehow right our ship.
Mhm.
That we could do that. And we could do that without evolving. That's something that the rest of the living universe has figured out long before we can, which is
Mhm.
if the living universe wants to continue to be the living universe, it has to continuously evolve.
Mm.
Mhm. Mhm.
And we as humans are not doing that very well. We're just not. Okay, we're not. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we don't have it within us. It's like there's that part where something about the thinking and learning and hungry mind, that earnestness about being human is also what the rest of the universe is counting on
Mm.
to um, do what may be necessary in this moment that the earth needs us. So if we have no regard for our fellow humans, may we at least have the regard for the earth that is counting on us.
Mm.
May we at least have that. So it's this mishmash, okay?
Mm. Mm.
It's this mishmash, but where does it begin? I believe that it begins with us placing the darkness at our back
Mm.
and really seeing much more clearly into that light. It's like telling the story of what that would be, what is required of us, that all of our uh, the things that we say are broken.
Mm.
Like, what is it that we say about what needs to be built?
Mm.
And then out of the isms, beyond the isms, setting the ism. If we can only describe the future as a series of isms, well, then I'm sorry, we're we're not going to get there, right? We're
Yes.
we're not going to get there.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, any farmer sitting in the autumn and says, well, let's see, sustainability is what I have to go for. It's not going to be able to plant the crop,
Mhm.
right? They have to be able to describe that in much more concrete terms,
Ah, ha, ha, ha.
Mhm.
right? Yeah,
Yes.
you have to, right? You have to. Okay? And so it's that concreteness of the future story. Yeah.
Mm. I
Uh,
love that. I love that. I love that.
And
There's
I
also
hear,
something about scale in it. There's something about scale, and our listeners know I'm very into the small, and that like even the biggest things are made up of very small, steady, focused, precise mistakes and experiments and right, like trying, right? And there's something about the scale of the farmer that feels so nourishing right now because in a way, the farmer is like the farm is the world. The farm is the whole thing. And how the wind is going to go, how the rain is going to go, the dirt, the quality of the dirt, who's going to eat this food, who's going to put it in the dirt, who's going to bring it back out. What are the other creatures who are also hungry, who are going to come and try to eat this? What are the other creatures underground who help fertilize the soil? And I mean, there's just everything about the whole ecosystem comes right down into like, what do I need to hold and manage and be very realistic about here, and what's, this soil will either grow or not grow what we need. And it's about the relationship. There's something about relationship um, in what you're saying that feels very comforting to my system, like not comforting like a mama bear comfort, but just sort of like, oh, the world is as it is. It's a cyclical thing where the relationship you have to place actually really matters.
Relationship matters a great deal. At the fires at Lahaina, which took place in August of
Mm,
last year,
mm,
and so we lost over 100 people
mm.
that were caught, that the fire was so fast that it was clocked at a mile per minute.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
you could barely outrun it. You could not stop it.
yeah.
And so that aspect about all of that loss is that in the aftermath, the only thing that worked is that there were small communities of people who were in relationship with each other, who had a muscle for what it means to do that and to be in mutual support of each other, and to be mutual
Mhm.
support of each other in which you are counting as your family people that you have never met. And that's the only thing, right? So there were these hubs,
Mhm.
right? In the parlance, right, the movement calls that mutual aid, or
Mhm.
whatever it is that you call it. But we have no language for that in the islands. And so we just do that,
It's family,
Mm.
yes.
right? It's just
Mhm.
family.
Mhm.
And part of the immediate family was that on the island of Molokai, across the channel from Maui, there are people who live there who that is their way in which they live. And so when they saw their relatives across the channel in such a devastation and suffering, they immediately just took things out of their closet and their freezers, and the fish that was drying on the line and the slippers, and they took that and they put it into packages that would be uh, usable and that would be safe from the water as they crossed the channel. And they just took it on their boats because they could, because they had boats, because they were fishermen. And they took
Right.
it across the channel. And those were the first people that made their way there. Molokai lives in the system of mutuality for which other institutions are either gone or are incapable of being a part of. And that is why they were so strong at that moment, is because they
Mm.
had built that up over time.
Mm.
And they were the first people to come across.
Mm.
And they were only useful because on the island of Maui, we had people in Lahaina, we had people also had that muscle. And so they were able to organize on their side, to
Mhm.
go out to meet the boats, to bring it ashore,
Mhm.
to cultivate, on this block and that block of people,
Mhm.
the ways in which to distribute that, the ways to keep track of people, to take care of their health. They had that. When the institutions finally arrived, they quickly learned that although they were needed, where they could be most useful is if they went to those people and places where mutuality existed, and if they supported that,
Yeah.
right? If they supported that, right?
Mhm.
If they says, okay, Archie, what do you need? What do you need, Archie? I have the money and I have the power and I have the authority as an institution.
Mhm.
But if I am not in relationship, specifically by first name,
Mhm.
If I am not in relationship, then my capacity, even with the best intention as an institution, I am not going to be where it is that is needed in the fast-moving system of the disaster of the world right now.
Mm.
Right now, it could be called a hurricane, it could be called a fire, it could be called political collapse. But this is just the fast-moving system of collapse right now. If
Yeah.
you are not in relationship and if you are not building a muscle not of that muscle that is about a working muscle. What is the work that we need right now?
Mm.
I don't trust movements very much, Adrian, if they don't know how to cook their own food.
I agree. I really
Right?
agree.
If
Yeah.
you got to outsource your resources from Costco, you're Trader Joe's, you're not in good shape.
Well, I think it's really, the whole time as you were speaking about Lahaina, I was thinking about Asheville, North Carolina here, and the same thing of like there's movements that stay in the realm of theory and conversation, and then there's this movement practice, and I've seen it growing of people being like, we need to be in mutual aid relationships with each other and with the land and cooperatives. And, it feels like, oh, this is a time where people are like, oh, our movements are, I mean, that's a whole other discussion. I think we'll be having many, many years of like what has philanthropy created of movements and how have we participated and said, okay, and let capitalism limit our capacity to stay in touch with the land and with each other in relationship. And I have a very sharp critique of it and of myself as a participant in it for my adult life. I'm really sitting with that. And I think this is a time of great humility. And one of the first things I thought was like, oh, I need to learn how to give abortions and I need to learn how to like really understand the herbs that are growing in my backyard. And I need to really like, there's just so many more like tangible things that I've been putting off. It's like at some point I'll come back to that, but I've got to facilitate this massive strategic thing, right? And now I'm just like, the strategy I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that, but I know that like there's this other strategy of being in relationship with the earth that has never failed me, that has never failed us. So I really appreciate that. And like knowing, I remember when I went to Ruckus and I didn't know how to make coffee for 60 people and I got teased, because they're just like, what kind of leader are you? You don't even know how to make coffee. And I learned, I was like, okay, let me make coffee and let me understand how to contribute to a composting toilet being set up or like what's the tangible stuff. And it does feel like a tangible time. Autumn, I want to come to you and see you had this question around analysis. And I want to know if you want to go to that question now or
Not
if you
yet.
want to go to, okay, great. Because I feel like, yeah, I feel something bubbling in you.
Yeah, so much is bubbling in
Mhm,
me.
mhm.
Which is always what I experience when I'm with you, Norma. It's just such a I had a feeling this morning when I woke up, in that raw state. I was like, just being with Adrienne and Norma is going to help
Yes.
my spirit. And I can feel it already happening.
Mm,
Some of it is about the way that the stance that you take, um, the strength of your stance, I feel like opens up so much possibility.
mm,
So thank you for that, for modeling that. Um, I wanted to come back to this 4,000 years to
mm,
get here. And I wanted to put that in relationship with this piece around the concreteness of the future story that we need to
mhm,
have.
mhm,
That how do we how do we how do we how do we appropriately be in the concreteness of the future story that we need, that's not about sustain. I love the example of sustainability. Thank you for that. I mean, and Adrian, you bringing in the strategic convening, you know what I mean? Like there's
mhm,
there's so much of our movement right now, we're just mired in what is just virtue signaling. It's just, it's actually just, it's not even always signaling virtue. It's just signaling something. It's just we're signaling things, but we're not,
busy,
we're busy signaling things. I was telling a colleague recently, I was like, I'm never going to facilitate another strategic plan. I do not believe in them. I don't believe in them anymore.
Welcome.
Just, I think that there's something about the planting of the seed metaphor, the farming metaphor, I appreciate and love the concreteness of that. And I wanna hear more about how do we also hold in mind this much longer view that is understanding that, abolition is a great idea. So nice. We're not going to see that in our lifetime. Our children are not going to see that in their lifetime. That's we're talking about tens of 20s of generations before we would see anything that even looks like that, which isn't a bad thing, right? It's not a tragedy, but yeah.
Yeah. So let's hold it. So what are you trying to harness right now?
I want to know how to maintain the long view of this, the bigger arc of how change actually happens, how evolution actually happens, how long it actually takes, without it being without it like, reinforcing or reinstilling the hopelessness that people feel about things not being a certain way inside their lifetime.
Okay. So I think that there is a simpler process than we think, but that what has occurred is that we have actually we've left aside a muscle that we had when we were children. So when we're children, we have stories, right? We tell stories. And it's where do children learn how to tell stories? I'm not sure. Because at a very young age, before a child actually has gone through any type of formal school, and it doesn't matter, by the way, whether you have a pre-K program in your neighborhood or not, right? A 3-4-year-old will go on babbling about things that they are seeing, making sense of that. And as they make sense of it, they're going to tell stories about things they see, but also things they think are happening that they're not seeing. And they're making up stories about how something has occurred, right? Like why blue is blue, right? They make up stories about what things heard, and they make up stories about what's going to happen next. They have within them the complete notion of all of that. And then I think education ruins us. Okay, formal education puts us into a system where we're structured into like how it is to speak, what language is, what's proper language, right? All of that type of thing. And it just effectively ruins us. Now, not the entirety of it, not the entire education. I'm not saying education should be thrown out. What I'm saying is the muscle that we had within us gets underutilized, but it doesn't mean that it isn't still there. And that we still don't, in our adult selves, have the ability to call upon that, to come into that place of wonderment and not to think about the wonderment as being fiction. Okay, so when we do that, then we're in a binary. No child thinks about fiction and imagination and what's real and what's not. They're just in that, right? In that world that is more permeable.
Yes.
Okay. But in an adult, if you come into it and you don't think of it, if you think of it as not as fiction and nonfiction, then what you'll do is you will put into the place that which you're imagining. That is what every good, you know, sorry to use this term because it's now been commodified, right? But it's the when the Disney people are Imagineering, right?
Uh-huh. Sorry.
They make real that which they have imagined.
Hmm.
Now, I would say that they are no longer as successful because now they're only building on what it is they have built.
Hmm.
Mm,
Just as in the technology world, right? A
Hmm.
thing that happens is it becomes stale because it's only building on what it is that has been built, not in the original, right,
Hmm.
notion of, right, from nothing comes everything, right?
mm,
When you're in that state, okay, in my world, we'd say the most fertile world of self-discovery is with the beginner's mind. But to be in that state of the beginner's mind, I believe a fruitful state of the beginner's mind is in the exercise of story
Uh-huh.
and future story in concrete terms, in which no isms live,
mm,
and in which thriving is like the fiercest possibility. But to describe thriving in the fiercest possibility, you have to actually describe it. You can't say, well, there is thriving. You
Right.
have to say, well, where are the children? What are they doing in this
Hmm.
day of thriving? How are they going
Hmm.
about their day? And to actually describe all of that.
mhm.
I
You
love
know,
that.
I'll read a short story that's actually not my story, but it is in my book.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm
Thank
reading
you.
it because it's the shortest part. Okay.
Great.
Okay, so this actually happened. So at the 2022 convention for the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, there was a panel of mayors of the 4 counties of Hawaii, and they were asked about the future of tourism, which is a
Mhm.
complicated and an emotional issue for Native peoples. When it came to Kauai Mayor Derek Kawakami's turn, he told the story of his future self, now retired, and he's younger than me and younger than you, Adrian. So he's
Mhm.
saying, in his retired self, he is taking his grandchild, yet unborn, and here he turned to his son who's in the audience. Hint, hint. So he's taking his grandchild to his favorite beach, unnamed here to interrupt the unhelpful geotagging that occurs when you name places. And he took his grandchild to his favorite beach to pass on his love for riding a few waves. They pulled into the lot and easily found a parking spot. And here the audience burst into appreciative cheers and clapped at the novelty of this twist that you'd be able to find
Mhm.
a parking spot. And on the way to the shore, they pass the island guests who are picking up rubbish as part of their kuleana, their mutual responsibility as guests. And the guides who are greeting them, newly arrived guests, say, aloha, hello. Here is sweet smelling biodegradable sunscreen that won't kill off the coral reef. Oh, thank
Mhm.
you for bringing your own. Swim on this side, please. And he paused. And no other mayor who came after him was able to offer as good an offering.
Right. Right.
He told everybody exactly what they needed to do.
Yes. Very precise.
Very precise.
Hmm.
His story had all the actionable things that you would need to do, including what it is you would need to do to change your mindset, right? The mindset things that would need to occur. People who came to the islands would now have to come as a guest, and they would have to come in not only as a guest who could do whatever it is they wanted, but as a guest who would come to Hawaii because they would know they're entering a place that is not their home, that is a home of people who are there, who would welcome you as a guest if you came as a guest, because that is what we do. But you would have to have mutual responsibility for that.
That's right.
And these are the things that you would need to do. So to tell that story, and to tell that story irrespective of the role that you would have. Your role might be mayor, or your role might be activist. What is this mutual story that you would tell with each other that would then tell you the actionable items that need to occur, that may take many, many years to come to fruition. But if you tell it as a story, I would say it will come to fruition faster.
I love that. I really love that. And Autumn, it makes me think of flowing into the practice question now, because so much of what I keep thinking about is really, what does it mean to pick our attention up, really pick our attention up and bring it to where it's most needed right now. And for me, that's a practice of beginner's mind, is being like, oh, like I think I'm off in expertise land. And can I pick myself up out of expertise land and come back to beginner's mind again and just be like, oh, there's a lot I don't know. There's a lot I'm curious about. And I still feel awe. I really noticed the sunset on election night and the crickets. And then a couple nights, last night, the moon was this really lovely, growing, fattening light. And I was just like, oh, like this is a world I'm going to have to learn again and again and again how to be in. Yes, so I love that idea. That's like, oh, there's something intergenerational too in the story you just told, and in what I keep feeling like, oh, we need to have beginner's mind about loving and practicing across generations, and being like, I'm not trying to create some victory in this moment. I'm trying to be in a flow that has long tail and has, I keep thinking of a river that flows from the beginning of time to the end of time, and just being like, like I've never been through this set of banks before, and I need someone to pull the trash out, and I'm going to nourish it. There's just a sense of like, oh, what is new, even if there's a lot of ancientness flowing through it. So anyway, all that to lead into this question. Around practice. For me, the practice has been the place that I can always return to. And I'm like, I don't quite know what else to do, but I know if I sit on the mat, or if I know if I go sit by the water, or I know if I let a song come through, like my practices will reground me. And some of the collective practices I keep thinking about right now are like humility. To be in a US citizen right now is like, we need a deep practice of humility. Like we keep getting caught off guard, and we keep causing immense harm. And we were founded in harm. And so harm is what keeps growing and coming. So how do we have humility? There's a collective practice of protection. Can we protect this earth? Can we protect the most vulnerable people? Can we protect? I keep thinking of a practice of mycelium, like what is our underground threading together that helps us hold on to each other. But I'm worried that so much of my orientation towards practice even is do. What do we need to do? What do we need to do? And I wonder if there's much more about practice of what we need to be and how we need to be. So we wanted to bring you this question in this moment, as people are feeling into the despair, the humility, the horizon. What is the horizon you can see from here? What would you point people towards as practice? I also say this with I have several people who've come and studied with you in Hawaii, and the practices are there's a high standard of practicing with a lot of rigor, and you can't just stumble in and think you're going to just practice. There's something in me that's like, can you tell us how to be rigorous and what to practice in this time that meets the moment?
So, I mean, there's like there's this, well, if I'm gonna mention a word that uh, movements are allergic to.
Yay.
Discipline.
Yes.
I love that.
We need to find a core of discipline that's not about the discipline of ideology.
Ooh, the crowd is going wild inside of both of us. Okay.
So there's when we say take a breath, that's not a metaphoric thing.
Mhm.
So if we are to do anything rigorously, it is to be in that embodied aspect of breath, which there are actual mechanical, physical things to be learned in order for us to uh, breathe deeply connected to the earth, in which the exhale is longer than the inhale, and in which that is available to us in moments of extraordinary crisis. And we, by our breath alone, become like this, like a glowing energy ball in which fierce peace is emanating from us. And therefore, we are capable of agency, of our agency. In other words, we've wrestled ourselves out of our amygdala and grounded ourselves in the essential breath in which the totality of the universe's spirit is available to us.
Mm.
Mhm.
That is actually a physical practice
Mhm.
that needs to be physically learned and then physically practiced many times each day, for which you need no gym membership, no uniform, no mantra, no thing except yourself and your breath, right?
Mhm.
Therefore, it's available to us,
Mhm.
right? And say, if you do not have that, I mean, like that's like an essential thing. It's like it's that which grounds us to the essential humanity. Without that, we're mechanical living beings rather than actual living beings. Okay.
Yes.
So, uh, I applaud you for and diddle you on the aspect of humility. Humility that stands side by side with the dignity of pride of becoming human, right? So not humility that is in which we cast our eyes down with shame,
Mhm.
right? It's really important to us for us to keep our heads up in our own humanity, right?
Mhm.
Even if we don't know yet what that is.
Mhm.
Okay, right?
Mhm.
And to do that. Uh, to interrupt the habit of individual freedom, for which there is no freedom at all. All freedom only exists in our collective self. Not, we will not survive long
Mm.
in our individual freedom. Even a billionaire cannot survive long
Mhm.
in their individual freedom. So that there's so many things we do that reinforce that. In particular, like the creed of this country
Yes.
is built on this individualism,
Yes.
which makes us capable of competition as our first learned skill. And so that the practice of being with each other, not for the purposes of a transaction,
Yes.
the practice of the cultivation of joy, even in the most horrific circumstances, to not allow that to die.
Yes.
The practice of gratitude. And the practice of gratitude, in particularly seeing and being with the various beings, not only the human ones, who are every single moment making it possible for where it is that we are right now
Mm-hmm.
and what it is that we can become. And to lean into that, because that energy is going to be needed. It's like, I don't think we pay enough attention
Mm-hmm.
to the energies beyond the energies of anger.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, we give short shrift to them.
Mm.
And because we give short shrift to them, they don't have a chance to take hold. It's like one side lost, another side won, but we should not conflate them to saying what is going to be required for the next transactional political win.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If what we learn from this moment is we have to be more angry than the other side, then we may win politically, but we will continue the destruction of the human race.
Correct.
And so, what would that mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This piece around joy and connection and relationship feels so key. I keep thinking about this. The first thing I did the morning after was make love and then snuggle and think about how grateful I am to be in a body, and how that body can still be connected. And all week, I've just been so grateful, like for being able to hold people and hug people and care for people, like take them things and have them bring things. And it just feels there's something so small and tender about it. But I'm like, I do know that this is also happening everywhere, that like all over the world, in Palestine and the Sudan, and here and in Hawaii, everywhere, people are holding each other and making love and loving each other and comforting children and kissing their heads and singing lullabies. There's just something at that level that I'm like, there's a protection of our humanity that emerges immediately. And then, yes, this beginner's mind and this breath, as you said it, letting the exhale be longer than the inhale. That feels so tangible. And, I've had a few people like, are you going to write something? I'm like, there's nothing else to say right now. I'm breathing and feeling and like being a human. It feels like so important to be human outside of anything else, but inside of connection. I want to name with Autumn because I know that we're feeling the same way, which is that we would spend the entire next 4 years just on this phone call with you. And we would be very happy to keep going, and so we are not going to do that. We're going to pause here, I think. And I want to direct people to go get this book. It is in bookstores. It is available wherever you are. Is there also an audiobook out?
But not yet, Adrian.
Not
So
yet,
not
but
yet.
it's coming. Okay. So there's the physical book. It's tiny, so you really can like sit in one reading. You can experience it, but you can also sit with like one page at a time and experience it. But however you go about it, we want everyone that listens to this show to get a copy for yourself, get a copy for the people in your lives, because this is the wisdom you're going to need right now. And I want to just offer you deep gratitude for the 4,000 years that led to your existence and to the life that you have lived on this earth in this time, and for listening for the wisdom of this book in this moment, and for saying yes to our invitation to come let us be a part of this launch week for you. Autumn, I think you probably also want to offer some words of gratitude.
Yeah, I
Look at
feel
your little
kind of,
sweet face. I love it.
I feel very overcome in this moment. And so
Mm-hmm.
thank you for
Mm-hmm.
being such an incredible and very important teacher to me, Norma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our listeners can't see us, Norma, but we've both been crying on and off as we've been sitting with you. And there's just something about water that I want to bring in here, which is like the power of a water dripping on stone, you know? I feel like that's the energy that you carry, that every time I'm around you, it's just like, oh, like I everything in me that wants to get hard, like the wisdom is like, get soft and go. Remember that you're water. Remember that like everything has changed. Everything has changed. So thank you. We love you.
Thank you. So much aloha for both of you. So much
Yeah.
aloha.
Yeah. Do you say mahalo?
Mahalo.
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 Ah.
Thank you,
Um,
Norma.
Shake these bones, oh, I gotta shake these bones.
Thanks for listening to our show. We're on Instagram at End of the World PC. We're also on Facebook at End of the World Show.
You can always make a donation to the show if you're moved by the work and you want to make sure it continues. Visit our page at patreon.com/end of the world show. And I will say a word here, which is in this time, it will be more important that we support each other and support the things that we want to uplift and hear from, and the people that we want to make sure are heard. So we really want to say thank you to all the people who already do that, who already let us know like there's something here that they want to keep experiencing. But yeah, we're really grateful for your generosity, and keep going.
And another incredible thing you can do to help our show sustain itself, talk about sustainability, is to write us a review on Apple Podcasts if you're an iPhone person. Thank you.
How to Survive the End of the World is produced and edited by the deeply rooted Zach Rosen. And the transcripts are always available both in our show notes and on our website at endoftheworldshow.org.
Music for today's show comes from Tunde Laniran and the Bangsons.
We love y'all. Exhale.
Thank you so much, Norma. Thank you for being with us today. What a blessed way to end this week.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really good to be with
Thank you. Yeah, forward. We eyes on the horizon. We move forward.
Forward. Eyes on the horizon. That's the direction to go.
Right.
All right.
Keeping the darkness at our back.
I love that. I'm like, that's all I needed. I'm just like, okay, darkness on my back, forward towards the light, exhale. Good.
Okay.
Thank you, Norma.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.